drive. Let's drive. Let's drive. Let's just drive, man. Jordan, please.
We got about 10 months to shoot that.
Jordan, just drive.
Zoom in on that.
Jordan, drive.
In just 2 months, 776 tornadoes hit the United States. April and May 2024 were historically active, coming in second place among the busiest tornado seasons ever recorded. Swarms of twisters whipped across the plains by the dozen. For the first time since 2019, violent tornadoes occurred during May. EF4 tornadoes hit Barnsdall, Oklahoma, and Greenfield, Iowa, claiming half a dozen lives. MyRadar was there for both storms and dozens more. We spent 40 days chasing. I had 13 close-range tornado intercepts, lost 2 windshields, and got pelted by baseball-sized hail close to a dozen times. Sorry, Geico. I drove more than 17,000 miles. That's like driving from the North Pole to the South Pole and then driving another 4,000 miles. Here's what it was like to chase the tornado swarms of spring 2024. April 2024 came in like a lamb. The Great Plains were quiet, and the Deep South was ominously silent. Alabama and Mississippi had largely missed out on their spring tornado season. Nothing really happened. But the unusual quiescence couldn't last forever. A classic severe weather pattern was shaping up for late April into May. Building high pressure in the east was pumping Gulf warmth and moisture north into the Great Plains. Cold air from the Rockies was sliding southeast. The clashing air masses waged war, sparking daily rounds of violent thunderstorms that towered to more than 50,000 feet high. A fierce jet stream racing overhead added wind energy to the equation, and changing winds with height sculpted storms into rotating supercells. My April began in New England, where MyRadar streamed the Great American Total Solar Eclipse on the 8th. Then I flew down to Dallas, had lunch with my 8th grade science teacher, and hunted around in search of storms. Not much happened the first couple days. Then on April 15th, I drove to Kansas in hopes of a good setup. Lots of storm chasers, including myself, waited all day long for good storms to form. But a stubborn lid of warm air above the ground capped the environment. That meant storms couldn't sprout. With no storms to chase, I flew back down to San Antonio for a book signing and enjoyed the Riverwalk. I watched a run-of-the-mill lightning storm from America's most haunted hotel atop the Alamo. Then it was back to Wichita, where the atmosphere looked to have a few tricks up its sleeve. Storms didn't do much on April 25th, but on April 26th, things went gangbusters. A pocket of low pressure and spin swung towards the Nebraska-Iowa border. A string of rotating supercells erupted as dry air kicked up a sliver of warmth and moisture. The first storm of the day was this one near Dwight, Nebraska. It is really trying here, folks. Near Seward, Nebraska. Look at that. Obvious spin. On radar, it looked like the storm was dying. The Weather Service dropped the warning, but in reality, it was just getting started. All right, gang, we have an unwarned tornado right now with multiple vortices crossing the road shortly in front of me. This is in the town of, or just north of the town of Seward in Nebraska. The tornado touched down at the intersection of Highway 15 and County Road 66. The wispy funnel crossed the road northeast. Finally, a warning came. The condensation funnel disappeared, but vortices still danced in the field. Then the invisible tornado made a surprise turn back west. Oh, semi just toppled. Vortices appeared again just to my east, snaking around each other like a double helix. Wow. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. The tornado lagged behind the rest of the storm. It actually backed up into the sunshine behind the towering clouds. As it roped out, it snaked back into blue skies. The twister was still on the ground even as the parent storm began evaporating. And that was just the outbreak's appetizer. I blasted east towards Omaha, caught the tail end of this tornado near the town of Blair, and then dropped in position near Tennant, Iowa for a new tornado that was forming. It went from a few brief whirls to a massive wedge in barely 2 minutes.
Alright gang, major multi-vortex tornado approaching 10 inch here in southwest Iowa. It's only about a half mile that way. There it is. I gotta leave.
I followed it east on Highway 44, trailing behind it as powerful suction vortices whipped across the road.
0 miles per hour. We are... Oh no. House being destroyed.
Pieces of insulation and splintered wood whipped across the road south of the tornado. Then it grew into a mile-wide monster as it paralleled Highway 59 heading north. It eventually dissipated near the town of Defiance. And that was just the start of a hyperactive month. On April 30th, I chased storms along a cold front north of Topeka, Kansas. I was west of Corning, Kansas, waiting on a slow-moving supercell. It was taking its time getting organized. The rain cleared from around its updraft, revealing a flat, crisp base. At 4:55 p.m., a tornado warning was issued for Nemaha County. Then the sirens.
Damage to roofs, windows, and vehicles will occur.
The storm's base became more rugged, a sign it was ingesting more air. A weak shower colliding from the south added moisture and oomph. That helped the wall cloud to burrow closer and closer to the ground. Moments later, a tornado descended.
Oh, this is a nice one. It's a good elephant trunk.
It started off as a cone, but quickly evolved into a slender rope that dangled from the cloud base above. I was in the middle of standing in a field taking pictures when I heard a really weird noise. It sounded like whoosh. At first, I actually thought it was the hiss of static before a lightning strike. Turns out, it was actually hail.
This thing just came down right next to me. It's the size of a lemon.
The next day was May 1st, and I found myself chasing storms in central Kansas. This one rotated profusely, but if anything touched down, it was rain-wrapped. I did see a few wall clouds, but nothing visible. Instead, I was just attacked by tumbleweeds. The storm was sucking in inflow at speeds over 60 miles per hour. I settled in Garden City that night. I woke up early the next morning. It was May 2nd, but things weren't really looking impressive from a tornado standpoint. But on a whim and a hunch, I drove 7 hours south to rural West Texas. I knew mesoscale or local features might make for a slim chance of some tornado magic. I was betting on an outflow boundary, or the leading edge of cool air exhaust from the prior day's storms. There was overturning horizontal spin along that boundary. If a storm was able to gobble up that horizontal vorticity, or spin, it could tilt it vertically and become a tornado factory. And that's exactly what happened. Within a half hour, storms were towering to 45,000 feet. I noticed one thunderstorm anchoring itself to the boundary. After blasting south through the hail core, I arrived to the town of Anson just in time. I raced through Anson as fast as I could, legally of course. When I tried to drive west on US 180, police had blocked off the road.
Any chance I can get through a media? I'm an atmospheric scientist.
Road tracers?
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it.
A gap in the clouds opened up as sunshine illuminated the tornado. The twister was a dynamic pipe. That means air was spiraling inwards at the bottom, but rising straight up into the tube-like funnel aloft. Within a minute, the powerful tornado underwent a spectacular rope out. Its bottom danced wildly in a series of serpentine contortions. By now, the base had detached from the cloud, but it actually strengthened. Think of a spinning ice skater pulling in their arms. The conservation of angular momentum means that, as a vortex is stretched, it tightens and strengthens. The dust cloud lingered on the ground for an extra minute or so. You can just barely see a rope funnel dangling in midair. But the storm wasn't over. I knew it was cycling, or reorganizing. I drove back to the east and entered the storm once again. Before long, a new tornado was touching down west of the town of Hawley. The funnel hung ominously overhead, dipping lower and lower to the ground. Multiple vortices danced beneath it as the tornado circulation finally touched down.
Guys, check this out. We just got baseball-sized hail. Here's a tornado.
The tornado wobbled closer, so I decided it was time to reposition east.
Holy Lord. That's a biggie. Oh man, that's nasty.
Unfortunately, this high-end EF3 tornado destroyed multiple homes, including one that belonged to a family of 4. The tornado was among the most high-contrast, classic stovepipes I'd ever seen. It roped out at 7:33 p.m. Then something weird happened. As I was driving south to my hotel along Highway 277, I heard a strange sucking noise and saw leaves and sticks in the air. A weak tornado was crossing right in front of me. You can't really see it well here, but watch what happens when we enhance the contrast. Suddenly you can see the weak vortex sweep across the road with 60 to 75 mile/hour winds. It still never appears in any official tornado database. Then came high precipitation supercells over the next few days. This one produced a massive rain-wrapped tornado near Robert Lee, Texas on May 3rd. There was a second storm southeast of San Angelo that may have produced the world's briefest, tiniest, wimpiest tornado north of Highway 87. On May 4th, I chased a supercell along Interstate 10 near Fort Stockton, Texas. Our storm chaser Jordan Hall saw the tornado, but unfortunately, I did not. I was farther east waiting for the storm. It was rotating profusely and spitting out some creepy clear air lightning bolts. Some were positive, meaning they shot out the top of the storm. That makes them more powerful. A few storms later, and I was in Oklahoma City on May 6th. It was a rare high-risk day, a top-tier level 5 out of 5. Violent tornadoes were in the forecast. But the widespread tornadic storms failed to materialize. Only one storm fully tapped into the volatile environment. It produced a killer EF4 tornado in Barnsdall, Oklahoma. On May 8th, I saw a funnel cloud in Paris, Texas. And on May 9th, I rendezvoused with my friend Pat Kavlin. He's a TV meteorologist in Houston. We decided to caravan chase together.
Proceed to the route.
Ooh, pretty storm. Nice.
Proceed to the route.
At first, the hail was only expected to be golf ball sized.
I want to collect them, but I know I shouldn't.
But the atmosphere had other plans.
Yeah, we're about to lose a window. And we just lost the window. This is how big the hail is, close to about 4 inches across. This can come down in severe thunderstorms. Whoops.
You've got to be kidding me right now.
Oh my god.
This kid's a lunatic.
On May 14th, I faced my biggest fears.
I am never coming to Texas again.
One windshield and a few dents later, I found a hailstorm in West Texas, southwest of San Angelo. Watch as one rogue baseball-sized stone crashes to earth in front of me.
Oh, shoot. Oh, that's way bigger than golf balls, isn't it?
You can even see the birds trying to outrun the hail. I eventually learned that it's possible to drive 5 miles on an empty gas tank. Go figure. Then I visited my favorite hooker. Hooker, Oklahoma, that is. I made friends with a prairie dog too, and spent some quality time with the train. On May 19th, a derecho, or a straight-line windstorm, hit Kansas. The chase wasn't anything crazy, but I did see some strong winds. Unfortunately, I also hit a bird. Sorry, PETA. On May 20th, I drove to Akron, Colorado in search of the mythical Colorado magic. I saw some dark clouds, but no magic, so I blasted east overnight for the next day's setup in Iowa. For the first time ever, I had an energy drink. It was a Red Bull. I felt like I could drive to Neptune. I probably wouldn't sleep until Thanksgiving. I made it to Omaha, Nebraska, where I parked at a Love's Travel stop at 3 in the morning and fell fast asleep. But not for long.
I was sleeping beautifully until it started hailing.
That was the warm front lifting through. By mid-morning, the atmosphere was rapidly heating. Both energy and spin were maximized in southwest Iowa. I arrived in the town of Emerson, Iowa at 2:19 p.m. Sirens were already blaring. Then it was time to get into position. By 2:55 p.m., a tornado was bearing down on me. I was at the intersection of Highway 34 and 71. It didn't look like much at first, but it quickly became mean. Even though the condensation funnel wasn't on the ground, it was doing EF2 damage.
This is amazing. This whole thing here is... Oh, wow, look at that. Okay, it's on the ground definitely right now. It is moving quickly. We may have to reposition to stay safe.
The tornado was moving at speeds over 50 miles per hour. By the time I saw it close up, I had barely 2 minutes before it would pass over my location. Blasting east, I realized I had waited about 10 seconds too long. 90-mile-per-hour winds at the outer edge of the circulation were trying to pry my vehicle off the pavement.
Ready, gang, debris. We're in the outer edge of a tornadic circulation near Villisca, Iowa. Okay, my goodness. We're getting winds about 95 to 100 miles per hour.
Then I looked out the left window.
Alrighty, gang, major tornado, Villisca, Iowa. We just got the edge of the circulation here. I can tell you, it was pretty scary.
Fortunately, the danger had passed, or so I thought. I was barely able to catch my breath before I saw something crazy out the right window. A new tornado had touched down just a mile to my south, and radar hardly showed any rotation. The tornado would go on to become the infamous Greenfield, Iowa tornado. It contained winds over 300 miles per hour and would kill 5 people along its 42.3-mile path. The next morning, I woke in Missouri. There was a spider on my door handle, but I courageously persevered. My chase took me about 8 hours to Brownwood, southeast of Abilene, Texas. By the time I got there, big supercells were ongoing. None were producing tornadoes, but the storms were tall. More than 65,000 feet, 2.5 times Mount Everest, enough to block out daylight. This is how dark it got at 3:45 in the afternoon. That night, I made it back to Wichita Falls, Texas, and befriended some ducks. I didn't really have much hope for the next morning, May 23rd. Morning cloud cover was holding thick, and there weren't really any obvious systems coming through. But breaks of overcast emerged in western Oklahoma. There were strong winds aloft to help storms spin, and I knew a dry line, or the leading edge of dry air to the west, would kick up moisture. On a whim, I drove to southwest Oklahoma. Storms were erupting, and I decided to play the southern one. I had a hunch it would have a little bit more moisture to work with. It gradually became more organized. I spotted a horseshoe vortex, or a horseshoe-shaped ring of winds that had detached from the storm. That's usually a sign of changing winds with height. But that was just a preview. The entire storm started to spin. A rotating wall cloud took shape by the time I got to Gould, Oklahoma. But it fizzled, so I repositioned on Highway 34 south of Duke, Oklahoma. First, a wall cloud began to form to my west. Notice the sinking air to my right. Warm air was rising ahead of that sinking. That made an invisible tube of horizontal spin that got ingested into the storm's updraft. That helped the storm itself to spin faster and faster. It was only a matter of time.
Oh, tornado. Oh, big tornado.
Expected hazards include at 7:05 p.m. Central Daylight Time. A confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado is located 6 miles north of El Dorado, moving east at 5 miles an hour.
At first, it was a bowl-shaped lowering with occasional vortices and turrets of dust beneath it. Then it solidified into a larger, stronger wedge tornado barely a mile away.
At 6:56 p.m. Central Daylight Time, a severe thunderstorm was located 4 miles southeast of Duke, moving east at 20.
It was a beautiful shapeshifter, at times taking the form of a fierce cone or a dusty stovepipe. Eventually, the vehicles near me fled the scene, but I firmly held my ground. I was confident I had enough escape routes to account for anything that might happen.
Oh, it's a shapeshifter.
In Texas, Hardin and Will Barker. Remember,
Watch as horizontal vortices feed into the tornado. Storm chasers call these noodles or tentacles. They're a sign of a violent circulation.
hazard, baseball-sized hail at 60 miles an hour with gusts. This is a radar indicated threat.
It passed barely a quarter mile away. I snapped photos, and honestly, I even filmed a quick ad for my kids' book.
Extreme weather for kids brings the weather to you. Oh, look, a massive tornado just outside my window.
At one point, a satellite tornado formed, or a tornado outside the main circulation. That satellite tornado was rated an EF0, but underscores the danger of storm chasing. All your attention might be dedicated to one tornado, and another could sneak up right next to you. Meanwhile, look at the tentacles in the main tornado. Doppler radar found evidence of ferocious winds over 200 miles per hour, but the tornado is rated an EF2. Frankly, there just wasn't much out here to hit.
Alrighty guys, we're in the rear flank downdraft, or the cold air wraparound on the backside of the tornado. That, obviously, the tornado near El Dorado, Oklahoma.
Eventually, it disappeared into the rain. On the way back to my hotel, a new storm formed to my northwest. It dumped tennis ball-sized hail on me. Once darkness fell, I pulled over to take videos of all the lightning, but then a crazy line of lights passed directly over my head. They were Starlink internet satellites. Moments later, a police officer pulled up behind me to make sure I was alright. I explained to him that I wasn't crazy, I was just nerdy. I stayed in Elk City that night, gearing up for what looked to be a nasty chase on Saturday the 24th. We had rotating storms crop up by mid-afternoon, and by evening, a storm was twisting right over my head.
Alrighty gang, here we go. This is where the tornado will form shortly. Hazleton, Kansas. We need a tornado warning on this. Yep, that's where it's gonna be.
But the tornadoes largely waited until after dark. The next day, I tried to make it to Missouri to chase, but I just got there about an hour too late. Dejectedly, I headed back to Oklahoma City on May 27th. It was storming in Dallas, but I stayed near the University of Oklahoma to have dinner with friends. Red Robin, yum. On the 28th, there were morning storms over Oklahoma. I drove west to near Lubbock. An old boundary exiting morning storms would serve as a focus for new activity. By 4:30, a rotating supercell was dropping baseball-sized hail near Morton, Texas. Cool air sagging south of it left an umbilical cord of twist, or streamwise vorticity, that was being entrained and sucked into a new storm to the west. That new storm would drop even bigger hail. I stationed near the small town of Pettit, then waited. Before long, baseballs were falling again, then softballs, then grapefruits, and then DVD-sized hail.
Alrighty gang, baseball to softball-sized hail right now near Bratz, Texas.
I collected some and stored it in a freezer.
4 to 5 inches across. This one bigger than a softball. It's about grapefruit size, 4.5 inches.
Then I drove through the storm once again to meet a research team who would 3D scan it. Ironically, that's when I lost my windshield. The storm wasn't dropping giant hail anymore, but rather millions of golf ball-sized stones. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. The storm receded into the distance at sunset, basking in the delicate pink and amber hues. Pouch-like mammatus clouds hung beneath the storm's anvil. That night I met storms in Lubbock. They had chased the storm too, and after dinner and drinks, I fell fast asleep. Sometimes the weather is poetic. The universe gave me a gift on my last chase day of 2024. Nothing happened on May 29th, but storm chasers knew May 30th could be an active day. Much like May 2nd, there weren't any large-scale features that screamed tornado. Yet there was a subtle boundary left from the previous day's storms. That could enhance twist on a local level and maybe spin up a tornado. I texted my same friends from earlier in the week. We decided to meet at the McDonald's in Lamesa, Texas. That's actually where my friend Andrew Gudarelli and I first met on May 17th, 2021. We had crossed paths back then and compared notes, and then wildly rendezvoused in front of a picturesque multi-vortex tornado near Big Spring in Forsyth, Texas that afternoon. He was half a mile south and caught the epic tornado from a similar angle. And it was just us. Only a few chasers were on that storm. For years, we talked about that McDonald's as being a good luck charm. And as luck would have it, I was wearing the same shirt. And now, more than 3 years later, I was back at the same McDonald's. Storms blew up quickly near Midland, Odessa, Texas. The strongest one passed right over the cities. A tornado emergency was issued for the oil fields. Jordan Hall captured this video of twin tornadoes near Midland. I was farther south in the town of Midkiff, where I patiently waited for the supercell to get its act together. And when it did, the results were incredible. The entire supercell began to tighten. Watch the clear slot, or a punch of dry air, help to tighten that circulation even more.
This slice of dry, cool air on the backside
tightening the spin.
A picturesque EF3 tornado.
Alrighty gang, tornado on the ground, south of Midland, Odessa, Texas. It's hailing right now. Look at this structure. This entire thing is the rotating updraft. Over here, we see a little wedge, if you will, of air cutting in. That's the dry slot. Essentially, that's cool, dense air, dry air, wrapping in to tighten the circulation. There's that tornado.
I couldn't get closer since the roads were private, but the twister did do major damage to equipment and power poles over the Pegasus oil field. That storm soon died, but another rotating cell fired quickly along the southward advancing boundary. I was racing west to avoid the hail. The car behind me dodged baseballs, but I didn't see any hail. That's how close it was. The storm was drying up into an LP supercell.
Guys, check this out. This is an LP, or a low precipitation supercell north of Rankin, Texas. It's breathtaking. You have a change of wind speed direction with height. Right now, winds are coming out of that way, out of the southeast at the surface, but high aloft, maybe the west, maybe the northwest. And this entire barber pole is sculpted like this.
My friends and I watched it soak up the resplendent hues of sunset. It twisted into oblivion before disintegrating altogether from bottom to top. We snapped a selfie. Then it was time to go home. May was officially over, and so was my chase. The 2024 tornado season was destructive. It was beautiful. It was tragic. And it was thrilling. Nothing will ever capture the dichotomy of emotion that accompanies chasing nature's most extreme storms. But MyRadar was there, start to finish, amid the Great Plains tornado swarms of 2024. And we'll be there for whatever comes in 2025. MyRadar, as always, is with you every step of the way. And that's a promise.
Look at that thing.
Follow MyRadar on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Download MyRadar on iOS, Android, Amazon Alexa, and Windows.